Hello everybody, welcome to Quiet Impact. Today I'm super excited to welcome Joel Harrison to the show. He is the editor-in-chief, influencer and co-founder of B2B Marketing and Propolis, where he has been elevating the state of B2B marketing for over 20 plus years now, which is absolutely incredible. He's in the process of writing a new book, which I'm super excited to hear about. He's in the process of just reinventing himself and figuring out what's next. So if you are interested in anything to do with B2B marketing and the future thereof, you're going to be super excited to hear this episode. Joel, welcome to Quiet Impact.
Nathan, it's great to be here. Great to talk to you as always.
Super excited to have you on the show. So for those that don't know, Joel, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how did you get to where you are today?
So I'm a journalist by profession, I suppose. And 20 years ago, we launched, I had been a journalist writing for business publications, trade publications, about things like marketing and technology. And 20 years ago, we launched a magazine called B2B Marketing. I launched that with a colleague, someone who I'd known since university. And we launched it into a space where there was no one was talking about B2B marketing, at least this side of the Atlantic. There was a lot about marketing, but, it was all about fish fingers and, nylons and Levi's and all those kind of things. So we just felt there was this gap in the market for that. And since then we've been on this, we kind of arrived and a lot of people kind of helped to kind of coalesce something of people, some interest in this area. And these days, B2B is a big deal, right? A lot of people are talking about B2B, loads of vendors, loads of agencies, loads of people self-identify as B2B marketing, which is lovely. My organisation, which I'm still one of the co-owners of, is going strong. We launched Propolis, which is a community engagement, a community intelligence platform where marketers come together to learn, to improve as teams, as individuals, to be more successful, more effective. And it's a fantastic resource for improving marketing's effectiveness and alignment with strategic objectives. So that's really great. But we have the businesses now professionally run. I've been given the opportunity to step a bit outside of that and kind of do some more of my own stuff. So as you say earlier on, as you teased earlier on, Nathan, I've got a chance to reinvent myself, which is fun and a little bit scary.
I love your origin story as well, by the way. I think it's super fascinating. I mean, you spotted a gap in the market and you really had a huge hand in the way the B2B marketing has evolved over the last 20 plus years. And as you said, everyone is talking about B2B marketing today. One of the things I want to get into with you is sort of where we are in B2B marketing today. And I think maybe you're hinting at that in the way that you are reinventing yourself because your job title has changed to influencer. So I'm just really interested to understand why you've made that shift. I've got my own perspectives on that, but why have you included the word influencer in your job title?
My job title was editor-in-chief. And that wasn't really relevant anymore because we have a head of content, Dave Rowland at B2B Marketing. He's great and he needs to own that role. And we have a CEO, Richard O'Connor, who is also great, and he needs me, one of the founders, not leaning over his shoulder the whole time. So the idea was to get me out of operational responsibility in the business, which has kind of happened anyway over the last 18 months, particularly at the start of this year. So my job title is now founder, editor-at-large, and influencer. Editor-at-large, the founder is what it says it is, right? I'm one of the founders, I'm still one of the owners. Editor-at-large means I'm out and about in the market, right? So the events going on about B2B marketing, I want to be there. I want to hear what's going on. I want to meet people. And I've been doing a lot of that. Last week I went to 4 events. This week I'm going to 3, and the week after the half-term holiday I'm going to about 5. It's crazy. So that's great. Influencer, well, this is a long answer. There's been a lot of conversation about influencer marketing in B2B. It's been people have been talking about it for over 10 years, and every year I think it might start becoming something, and it never quite does. But this year it seems to have hit a kind of critical mass, possibly. And you've had people wading into this sphere. Like Ogilvy did a report last year, which is really interesting, and it kind of helped. It's a discussion piece about what influencer marketing is. LinkedIn have subsequently waded into that as well. And they've obviously got a lot of vested interest in influencer marketing being important because they enable a lot of it. And I just figured, having been kind of negative about this term for a long time, or at least skeptical about it, I thought, well, actually, this is kind of what I am. I accepted that I've been doing this anyway for 20 years, but now I've got this position where I'm no longer tied to the products or services that my organisation runs. I have a free reign, and so it really is about me. And I've got to, and it's like, it's the least worst definition. I've got to embrace it, and so that's what I've done. And since I've done that, stuff like this has happened to me. Nathan, you wanted to talk to me, and I always want to talk to you because you're a really interesting guy and a lovely guy as well. But it's started all kinds of conversations. So I feel like I'm at the beginning of a really interesting journey here.
Do you see this as part of the bigger shift in marketing where people are taking control and ownership of their own personal brands or their own content in order to humanize their content, in order to humanize their companies?
I think I've not really ever thought about this until you said this, right? So forgive me, this is not a very well thought through response. I think it's probably a response of a lot of larger trends that are happening. I think it's a response of, it's the opportunity, right? It's something that people can align around as a doer, can define themselves as influencers. So from my perspective, it's also in response to things like content proliferation, which is driven by which is accelerated by AI. The ability to produce content really quickly and easily has just gone up several gears at once. So everybody can create content really easily. You don't have to be a subject matter expert to do it. And then consequently the value of that content goes down. So anything with more authenticity is becoming more to the fore. I think that's probably what's driving this. And there's a naked commercialism aspect to this from brands who are just, I think there's a naked commercialism in terms of this is another way that brands can sell stuff candidly. They can pay people to talk about their stuff. But there's a few things coming together at once in all of this, which and there's probably others as well that I hadn't really considered.
How important is it for brands to hire influencers as opposed to becoming influencers themselves? Because the way that I think about this, and again, forgive me because I haven't really thought about this in too much depth until we're actually talking about it now. But on the one hand, I understand the value of influencer marketing because we're saying, okay, we're not very influential right now as an organization, so I want to hire an influential person to help me build my influence in order for me to get access to their audiences and sort of get me in front of the people that they know, which is fine. But then one thing that strikes me is that once you stop working with that influencer, does that influence then just dissipate? Do you then have to hire another influencer in order to keep that halo? So my question to you is it not better for the brand, the CEO, the founder, the leadership team to create their own personal brands? Because that is infinitely scalable. That's something they can own. That's something they can scale. Talk to me about that.
I don't think it's. I'm not. Again, this answer comes with a disclaimer in that, right? I'm on the beginning of a journey. I think it would be foolish and naive and irresponsible to claim that hiring influencers is a substitute for having a meaningful brand that's well expressed and well communicated across all the aspects of it, and then individuals within the organisation also who are thought leaders. I don't think it can be. You can't buy that brand resonance that has to be there. I think the kind of tentative steps I'm making around this seem to be more around reach and authenticity around particular messages. And I think it plays to this point around how much of your market is in market, and we all kind of know that most of it probably isn't, or at least it doesn't know that it is at the moment. Therefore, your ability to cut through as someone that's trusted and liked around particular messages perhaps opens doors that wouldn't otherwise be opened.
I look at someone like Rory Sutherland, for instance, and what his personal brand has done for Ogilvy, and I just think that is such a great example of the power of an influencer to be able to build a brand and to be able to spread its message.
Yeah, he's a brilliant example. But I don't think that Ogilvy would want to say that Rory is Ogilvy or Ogilvy is Rory. He adds that kind of X factor to it, that personality dimension. That they would, given the tenure of the Ogilvy brand and the multifaceted aspects to it, they'd want to say that there are much more to that than just Rory. But it's a really good example. I think at a brand level, it's complementary, and there's an alignment between the brand and the organisation. But I think what you're going to see more is So it's interesting. So I'm thinking as I'm speaking here, you know, at a brand level, I think Rory's probably more a thought leader than an influencer, because he has particular things that he wants to talk about, and he's being a thought leader for that organisation. An influencer to me is probably a bit more freewheeling, probably less necessarily aligned with an organisation, and therefore is to an extent a gun for hire by organisations out there. And that will be, there are lots of different ways of making a differentiation, but that's how I would prescribe one. I'd actually like to be kind of both, which sounds greedy, but I'd like to have as an editor, I'm used to having gravitas. I certainly don't want to be seen as someone who is so fickle that they'll just flip from one message to the next, which is why I want to write a book. And you may want to talk about that now, or you may want to talk about that later on. It's up to you.
You said that you don't want to tell people yet what the book is, but it's going to be something around B2B marketing. Are you clearer yet on what the book is? Can you tell us any more about what you're writing?
I'm not going to talk about the subject, but I know what I want it to be, and I'm 95% sure that it's going to be that. But it's not the first book that's been written on this subject, and I just want to make sure that I've spoken to enough of the right stakeholders that I'm confident in going out on a limb and saying this is the book I'm going to write. But yeah, it is about. It's about B2B marketing. It's about a really powerful aspect of B2B marketing that I don't think gets enough credibility, enough respect, and enough use, because it's not really hyped up by the supply side, either the agencies or the vendors, as much as other areas are. And I'm really fascinated by the intellectual experience of having all those interviews and talking to those people and creating a really big body of work, and seeing my name on the cover. There's a bit of ego to this as well.
Of course. When are we going to know more? I wasn't able to twist your arm to get more information.
It's a good try though, Nathan. You nearly had me.
I'll keep trying throughout the rest of the interview. When are we going to know more?
I mean, it's literally a matter of days. I've got a few more conversations to have with some particular individuals, and then I'll probably, what I've said to myself I do, and I've got to give a bit of a shout out to Katie Howell, who's been super helpful for me in terms of helping me navigate the kind of transition from a journalist to influencer / thought leader. She was like, well, why don't you just do some video yourself, talk about the journey you're making. And I did the first one, which got a really great response, and it's great partly why we're talking, Nathan, which is lovely. It's lovely to be able to be kind of vulnerable and open about the things that you're doing and the things you feel, because everyone's going through transformations in their role and their understanding. I know you are as well, and so it's lovely to have the chance to do that and to get that warmly received. But so I expect it's really not very long at all. I would hope to have it to kind of middle November, I would say.
So speaking of my transformation, the reason why I invited you on the show in the first place is because, as you know, I'm exploring this intersection between introversion and leadership and entrepreneurship, because I actually think the best leaders, the best salespeople, I think the best entrepreneurs are introverts. And I think for a number of reasons, I think we're able to go deep on things. I think we're able to ask really good questions and actually listen to the answers. I think that we can take firm and even challenging positions on things without coming across aggressive or coming across as an arsehole. I think that introverts have the ability to do a lot of great research, to go really deep. And I think part of the reason why podcasting has taken off, by the way, I'm an introvert if you haven't been able to tell, but I think this medium is perfect for introverts. Like, I'm in my home studio, there's no one else around, I'm not having to expel my energy on a number of, on a lot of people. I also think a lot of writers are introverts, hence probably the reason why maybe you're writing your book. I just think there are lots of superpowers that introverts have that aren't appreciated in our world. And our world is really run by extroverts, right? Where we live in an extrovert ideal. Personality, the most important part of personality, is where we fall on that spectrum of introversion and extroversion. And when we spoke, you actually identified as well that actually, I don't think you recognized it at the time, but I actually think you, through the process of having the conversation, you you discovered that maybe you are an introvert as well, and that you need time to recover after social engagements. How have you managed to balance building a company the size of B2B marketing and all these social engagements that you have to do on a weekly basis, while also being somewhere on that introvert spectrum?
Well, thank you. It's a great question, Nathan. And I'm sure there are lots of people out there who listen who similarly, like you and I, identify as introvert. I did kind of mention that in our talk. I had figured that bit out beforehand, and okay. Something I was always interested in about myself. How I managed it personally, I think giving myself time and recognizing when to what I need to show up as the best version of myself. I remember vividly years ago, when as a junior journalist, maybe a couple of years into my career, being invited to like loads of meetings in one day, like 5 meetings in one day. And I remember the last one just being exhausted, strung out. And it's not just about concentration. It's about all the things that you have to do, all the social niceties that you have to do to make that happen. And I'm not going to say I think there's introversion. There are different extremes of introversion and extroversion. And I don't think I'm like completely very, very hot, intense introvert, as it were. I'm not sure the terminology is right, so forgive me if I'm saying anything inappropriate. But I do have that tendency, and I know that I need time to myself, and I need to make time for myself, and I need to. And if I had busy times of travelling as well, particularly if I'm doing conferences abroad, I need to make time where I go away from everybody else and just recharge my batteries, and then I can come out and be that functioning person again. So. Yeah, self-knowledge gives you the ability to get the best out of yourself for everybody else's benefit as well.
How do you think and by the way, I agree with you, it's a spectrum. So all the way on the right-hand side, if you're an extrovert, I would put people like Tony Robbins, who is like, the extrovert of all extroverts. And then on the other end of the spectrum, are shy, awkward introverts that don't speak, hermits, and who don't speak to anyone, or who are so shy that they don't have any friends. And I think it's and there's everyone else in between. There's every degree in between, right? You're right in saying that you're not to one end of the extreme or the other. Considering that you do need time to yourself to recover and get your energy back, how do you feel that your introversion has helped you as an entrepreneur and as a founder? Do you think it has?
It's interesting. I would never ask the question before you've asked this, how it's helped me, because I would have said, how have I managed it almost? Like that's,
in
spite
spite of it.
Yeah, in spite of it. I think that's exactly how I would have felt. My business partner is extreme extrovert, bordering on hyperactive. And so, but in that respect, we balance each other out. Even though we don't always agree, we balance each other out. And he has skills in, rallying people or geeing them up in the way that I don't. So the balance of that is very, very good. I think if we've both been extroverts or both been introverts, it wouldn't have worked. So that's very powerful. I think that certain professions, as you said just now, are naturally more predicated towards, or you're easier to flourish in certain professions than being an introvert than others. And I think writing is, as you say, you live in your own world, and it's easy to be like that. And I know more journalists that I've worked with over the years who've been on that introverted spectrum than extroverted ones, because you have to sit and concentrate for long periods of time. It's just how it is. Whereas, as I know we're going to probably talk about later on, I know less introverts in the kind of sales side of the spectrum. So how I managed it, I guess, I think you asked in before about leadership. I find it easy to lead people where you're doing a job that I understand and implicitly, and they understand me. So it's easy to lead other content creators because they think, or designers or journalists, because you think in the same way. But I've never had to manage salespeople, and I don't think I'd be very good at it. So you play to your strengths, I guess, is the simple answer. But also, try and also in terms of management, try not to necessarily conform to your lowest common denominator stakes. Just because you're feeling introverted means that sometimes you've got to go, I've got to be this different person right now because if I be the person I want to be, then it sends all kinds of bad messages, and as you get older and more stuck in your ways, you have to work harder to do that.
You got to put on that extroverted mask and then show up, but then take it off and then go lie down in a dark room for a couple of hours, right? Yeah. To recharge your batteries.
Even if it's just momentarily, even if it's just to go, I've just got to be really happy and jolly for the first 5 minutes of the day, and then I can just go and sit in a corner and ignore everybody. So you just got to know that needs to happen.
But I think you're right. I think we need both, right? I think we need both introverts and a world of just extroverts that terrifies me, right? Absolutely terrifies. But a world of just introverts as well. I mean, again, that's a shocking world. We need both. We need the north and south of temperament. It's like we need men and women. We need Democrats and Republicans, I guess. We need, we need north and south. We need Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King. Rosa Parks on her own wouldn't have propelled the civil rights movement, right? But again, if Martin Luther King was the person on the bus, he probably wouldn't have gotten the fanfare and the attention. But it was because it was this quiet, softly spoken, quietly strong person. That was the reason why it exploded in the way that it did, right? So we need both. You need to be a Joel Harrison, but you also need your co-founder as well, who's also extroverted.
And I see other people, both sides of the spectrum. I'm somebody I work with quite closely. I'm not going to mention her name, but she is a salesperson, and she's an excellent salesperson. She's not someone who works with B2B marketing, by the way, just for sake of clarity. But she sometimes worries that her extroversion, if that's a word, means that she struggles to connect at a deeper level with people. With my business, James is great at having one kind of conversation. I'm great at having another kind of conversation with them, because he doesn't have to carry the weight of seriousness, whereas I do that naturally. It works. It works on lots of levels, and they are complementary. And but I think I like what you're doing here, trying to highlight it and trying to get people to celebrate the things that they bring, and because it's so easy to see it as a negative. I never thought, for example, when we started the business, that I'm a public speaker. I go and I host all of our events. I speak publicly. I really like speaking publicly as well. I never thought I could do that. I thought my business partner would be natural to do that because he is so extrovert. He's terrified of it. He doesn't want to do it, and so he naturally leads it to me. And I think one of the things I've learned with this is actually it's an act. You put on a persona that is not necessarily you. You become a persona and that allows you to be somebody else and to be. It's the opposite of being vulnerable. It's putting on a mask and saying, I'm going to do this, and then you see that. And my wife is a massive David Bowie fan, right? And you see it, pop stars do this. They're all putting on masks and pretending to be something that the audience wants them to be. I can do that really well for a period of time, but not indefinitely. It has to come off sooner or later. So I think in some ways, as an introvert, maybe this is just me, but you can inhabit a different role possibly more easy than someone who's an extrovert who just want to come out all the time. They're so excited. Their natural exuberance just flows over the top. So,
I just think you want to be the centre of attention, Joel. I just think you love the limelight. It's really interesting what you say, especially when it comes to sales, because again, probably counterintuitively, I think the best salespeople are introverts. Again, for a number of the reasons that I've just said. We listen, we go deep. We not only listen for what is said, but we listen for what is not said, which I think is a huge part of understanding what the customer's issue and challenge is. We, again, do a lot of research. We tend to go deep on things. We can take, going back to Brent Adamson's challenger sale, we can challenge in a way that doesn't put people's backs up, that, you know, it doesn't come across as aggressive, but it's quite firm. But I think the extrovert ideal, especially in sales, is what a lot of people look for. They look for that gregarious, talkative alpha that's out there. But actually, counterintuitively, it's the person who is a little bit more reserved that is actually more effective.
I mean, I'm sure that there are alphas who are very good at reading people, but also I can sometimes equally there are some people who are alphas who are, the confidence is good at geeing people along, but there's only so far that geeing along will work when it's a very complex B2B sale, right? So sure. I can see a situation where, and I'm not going to claim to be an expert in sales, I'm not, I know a bit about sales and on personality profile, that would, you know, this is just my own experiences, right? So please don't take this as any kind of quantified stuff. But certainly, like, if you're thinking about like, you know, a kind of low level or sales, you know, engagement, you know, appointment booking, or, you know, selling kind of like quite transactional, low ticket items, I appreciate that gregariousness probably comes across really, really well. But like I say, when you're negotiating something that is, you know, multi-year, multi-thousand / millions of pounds, you don't want someone to be, you want them to have nuance and empathy and as you say, listening to what's not said rather than what is said.
100%. It's the balance of IQ and EQ. I feel that emotional intelligence, and part of the reason why you may feel drained when you're in that fifth meeting is because for those 4 meetings, you're not only listening to what people are saying, but you're looking at their body language, and you're also the social cues and the how to respond in that moment, and all of those things we think about a lot as introverts. We're in our heads the whole time, and it's draining. It absolutely is draining, because just before I let you go, Joel, I can't let you go without asking you a question about where we are in B2B marketing right now and what the future of B2B marketing is. That sounds like it would be a series of podcasts all by themselves, but you've got like 15 minutes to unpack this for me. There's been this age-old question between brand marketing and performance marketing, and marketers saying, look, we need to somehow find a way of getting customers to raise their hand to respond to something now, because we need to drive revenue in the short term. And then on the other hand, this is a crude definition here, but the way that I see it is that there are 2 types of marketing, brand and performance. And you'll get the brand marketers that are solely in the brand camp, and you get the performance marketers that are solely in the performance marketing camp, where I feel as though there needs to be a combination of the 2 that needs to work hand in hand. And almost this shift towards the personalization and humanization of content and social content that humanizes our brands that we talked about at the beginning of the conversation, that is leading us so much more towards the direction of brand marketing and connecting with people on a deep emotional level until they're ready to buy, right? Because as you rightly said, most people are not in market to buy now, but over a period of time they could be. But if they're exposed to your content, then that gives you an advantage in the marketplace. Just talk to me about kind of where you think we are in B2B marketing today.
Well, the first thing, Nathan, I think you're absolutely right. It's never one or the other. It's always both. And if anybody tries to tell you it's one or the other, then it's because they're trying to sell you that one that they think it is. And whether that's directly or whether that's via a lot of people talking about brand, I find fun enough. I've got vested interest in selling advertising. So I beware of snake oil salesmen. But your point around personalization, and I think, sorry, to be fair, most B2B marketers know this, right? So I find the wave of content about, oh, you've just got to focus on your brand. Did you not know that you need to focus on your brand? I just find it disingenuous and patronizing and just unnecessarily and really insulting to most B2B marketers. They know it, right? You're not idiots. Most of them have been trained. If they're not trained, then they get it because they get marketing. The practical realities are they can't always focus on brand because there are constructs of the marketing team there where you're ultimately focusing on supporting sales as a function, and that takes various forms, and most often it requires filling a funnel. Now, is that the most effective way of doing it? I'm not necessarily sure that it is, but at least you have to be perceived to be doing that. At least it always is. Your point around the personalization thing, does that lean, that you're saying that leans towards brand? Well, I would contend that leads towards, I mean, you think about something like account-based marketing, that leans very much towards ABM, which is a form of demand marketing. You know, the personalization aspect where you're trying to tailor content for individuals, known individuals as part of a buyer journey who have identified and been targeted. That's very much on the brands, on the demand side of the equation. So I think all of it, you know, all these amazing kind of revolutions and innovations that we're seeing in B2B marketing can be leveraged in different ways. But I think it's great that we're having this conversation about brand. But I just don't want people to go away and go, oh well, we should switch off all these channels, because that's just not appropriate or helpful or commensurate with the challenges that most marketers face. Thanks, Nathan. It's been great talking to you too. I mean, the best thing to do really is follow me on LinkedIn. You can see links to various different activities and my personal website there as well, but that's probably got a most rounded view of what I'm up to that way. So follow me on LinkedIn, and I will be, as soon as the book topic is available for public consumption, it will be published there. So that's the best way to do it. But thanks so much for having me on today. It's been great talking to you as always. It's a great topic.